You're listening to the audio-only version of Cocktails with Cav, the popular video cast streamed live only on X. Follow us here on Spotify or on X at Cav Literature.
Oh, happy Friday, everybody. It has been an incredible week. Oh, I even got some sailing in. Took off, sailed to Mississippi, and it was just a gorgeous day on the water in the middle of the week. Hot. The good old Gulf Coast, the sun was out. But, oh, what a great trip. You are going to want to stick around tonight. We have an incredible show for you. The Australian bad boy of crime fiction. But I tell you what, he's not only an incredible author, he's also just an all-around great guy to get to know and chat with. So you're going to want to meet him. So a little quick bit of housekeeping, please. As always, check the links of the show. Please consider supporting the show so we can continue to bring you these great indie creators. Cheap cup of coffee's all it takes at our Buy Me a Coffee link. And also, we have our merch page. Go check it out. Maybe get you a ball cap or a Cocktails with Cav official drinking glass so you can fill it up and enjoy the shows with that. It's we got some great swag in our merch store, and it's also a great way to support the show. Well, like I said, our guest tonight, crime, sex, corruption, politics. His novels have it all, and generally, in my experience, guys that know about crime, sex, corruption, and politics are fun to hang around with. But ladies and gentlemen, come on, grab a cocktail. Let's get to know and welcome to the stage crime fiction author A.B. Patterson. Oh, Andrew, my friend, thank you so much for being on. I've been aching to have the bad boy of Australian crime fiction on the show here at Cocktails with Cav. How are things down under, my friend?
Well, g'day, George, and great to be here, mate. Thank you very much for the invitation. Going well down under, and in true keeping with Bad Boy, it's just after 1 p.m. in the afternoon here. It's a little bit early,
but
hey,
day drink. Normally, when I do my UK friends and creators on the show, I have to be the day drinker while they're in the evening. But
right, okay.
So I love you, I love you, Australians, mate.
Well, today you got the evening shift for the drinking today, so and I thought I'd go in character, so I've broken out the Jameson today, so which is what my private investigator Harry. It's his poison of choice. So
there you go.
I'm going with Harry today.
Oh, golly. Well, I tell you, no, and I wasn't kidding at all, Andrew, saying I really was aching to have you on the show. Being, I'm retiring very, very soon. I'm counting on two hands in days now.
All right, okay, very soon.
From law enforcement, but I know we have a lot, having gotten to know you on X and talking with you, have a lot in common in that regard, but just a huge fan of your work and your Harry's World Series and just, so hopefully we could talk about that in a few minutes, but hey, we like to let the audience get to know creators, man. Why don't you go ahead and tell them a little about yourself and let them get to know you before they rush to buy your wonderful books.
Here's hoping. Yeah. I suppose starting from the beginning then. So yeah, I was law enforcement, police force in Western Australia, which is over the other side of the country from where I am now. Did that for about 13 and a half years or so. Decided I had enough. I was detective sergeant when I left. I did most of my detective time in child protection and vice, which heavily informs my writing these days. Then I moved so I was in Perth, which is on the west coast of Australia, moved over to Sydney, which is where I am now on the east coast. And I've done work for the Corruption Commission here for a while, doing investigating government corruption. No shortage of that. Then other government work, worked in local government for a while, and then 10 years ago I decided to strike out on my own. So I still do investigation work, but it's all pretty well workplace misconduct So, your workplace bullying, sexual harassment, fraud, all those sort of things that employees decide to get up to every now and then.
Right.
So that pays the bills. And then whenever I can get spare time, I write my crime fiction and other bits of fiction, but mainly crime at the moment. So, and obviously, I draw pretty heavily on stuff that I saw both in the police and in the Corruption Commission for my stories. So whilst I do write fiction,
it's peppered a little. Is that what you? The names have been changed.
The names have been changed, absolutely. There's more truth in there than people might think.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
And I tell you, that's the field you worked in is such just a fascinating law enforcement field. Obviously, it comes with its horrors and its tragedies as well, and which I'm one of the things I love about your work, you didn't hold back a whole lot. It's gritty. It's some gritty noir, so, but
yeah, it is. And look, when I sell, I quite often at markets on the weekend. Some partner runs a jewelry business, so we do markets often on the weekend. I'll have my bookcase out the front and books for sale as well. But I always say to people when I pick them up and have a look, I said, it is hardcore crime. There's nothing gentle about it. And look, most people are fine with it. If they like crime fiction, mostly they're happy to read that. But I do warn them because, as you rightly say, from having had a look at it, I don't hold back. And one of the motivations for me writing the way I do is I actually want to tell crime stories, which hopefully are entertaining stories, of course. That's your job as a storyteller. But also to say to people, this is actually what happens out there. Because I find that with a fair bit of crime fiction that gets published, I guess it's all a bit tame for me.
Right.
And they can still be great stories, but I prefer, and in terms of what I read, I tend to read the harder core stuff as well. But I like the gritty realism, and that's what I like to read, and it's also what I like to write. So
yeah, and I think literature, no matter the genre, whether you're talking crime fiction or science fiction, it really doesn't matter. True literature speaks to a lot of stuff. Did that drive you to want to become a writer and kind of get those stories out from what you've seen over the years, obviously?
Yeah. A big driving part, absolutely, George, because as I said, apart from wanting to, I enjoy writing in itself. And wanting to tell a good story, but it's wanting to say this is what happens out there, not going easy or soft on the detail, but also in that making some social commentary. So obviously, as you would have picked up from reading the stuff, corruption is one of my bugbears.
Right.
And across the board, but it's I saw bits of it in the police force. I've seen plenty of it in government service, and obviously I've worked in the Government Corruption Commission investigating it. And it's that whole abuse of power is one of the themes that has been with me my whole life, and being able to write about that and make this social comment. And I think that's one of the great things about writing fiction. It gives you an avenue to make all sorts of social commentary. As well, and say this is what's going on out there, and then of course you need to balance that so that you're not appearing to get onto a soapbox and
right
give a lecture, which can be hard at times. Sometimes when you're doing the editing, you think, I've got on a soapbox there. I need to trim that bit down, or whatever. It's easy enough to do.
But I tell you, it drives your stories very well, obviously, but it's that's one of the things that's always fascinated me, obviously, about well-written works is, like I said, no matter the genre, when it speaks to something and hopefully it awakens people to things they might not be aware of or want to change. We have so much going on now. You hear the talk every day. The internet's a wild place, it's a wild place. But between just things you can find online readily for our youth and yeah, censorship, you name it. There's all kinds of discussions going on now, heavily.
Yep.
Yeah, and I know you speak to that a lot sometimes. When you talk about censorship and things like that.
Yeah, look, I think I'm vehemently opposed to censorship, and I mean, obviously, in relation to what children can access, I absolutely acknowledge there need to be some controls around that. That's different. I'm only talking about adults, but I think that the real problem with censorship is that it's once you start restricting what people can say, people can read. You then, and George Orwell nailed this one in 1984, that once you control the vocabulary, you start to control how people think. And I think, and what we're seeing, I mean, some days I despair of the world a bit when you see what passes now for social discourse or debate, which is, a lot of it just ends up being a shouting match from one side against the other, which I don't think helps to solve anything. But I think, in terms of freedom or freedom of creative expression, I think it's vital that writers should be able to write what they want to write. If people don't want to read it, that's fine, of course. But I think once and there's a fairly strong censorship movement out there, including amongst some writers. But I think a lot of that's about that particular group wants to control the narrative. Whereas I don't think anybody should be silenced. I think everybody's voice has got a place. If you don't want to listen to it, that's fine. But I think that it's a very slippery slope when we start trying to stop people saying what they want to say.
Oh, absolutely. And I know, literature throughout history has been that place where the unspoken has been spoken, and it's, when you talk about all the great works of literature, even that talked about it, like you mentioned, Orwell and Fahrenheit 454 and all those kind of works like that. It is literature is a place where hopefully expression can remain and continue to harbor dissent or discourse that otherwise gets quashed in some places.
Well, it's also about having that variety of ideas out there in the community. I mean, it's a sad day when everybody starts thinking the same.
well, and I find in the social media, sure, when you talk about that, those thought bubbles that are created, by the algorithms are just it's done a disservice, I think. And
it's I mean, the whole social media thing, it's in many ways it's fascinating. And look, I mean, it's one of those things that sort of like any new technology that comes along, it's got its good bits, it's got its bad bits. Because hey, guess what? It was invented by human beings and it's run by human beings. So it's always going to be a mixture of good and bad.
You don't even have to go much further in explanation once you you bring the human element in it. We do tend to have our flaws.
Absolutely. If I say to people when I'm talking about corruption, I say, do you think we're ever going to stamp out government corruption? I said, no. Not unless you're going to eradicate human nature, because that's part of it. You put people in positions of power, and some will act corruptly.
That's it. And what's the old expression? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one. Yep.
Oh, but that is too true. Well, man, I tell you what, Andrew, we are going to get in. I'm going to have to go refill my cocktail because we're having such a great conversation. and when we come back, look, refill up, man, please. Let's talk about your great work. You got some projects going on right now that I know I've talked to you that I'm fascinated with as well. So when we come back, man, let's dig into your work and let everybody get to know Harry's World and all the other great projects you have going on.
Cool. I'll top up my Jameson then.
That's right. Don't let the glass run dry, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick mid-roll break to remind you. Please go to my X profile and visit my Linktree link right at the top. Or heck, it's scrolling right here across the top of the screen for you, Linktree/Reed Kavanaugh. Go visit it. You can subscribe for free and you'll never miss one of the great Cocktails We Have offerings. Tell you what, packed full of information. It has As always, the latest Cocktails with Cav show. Great interviews with indie creators right at the top. As well as our new show, Cocktails with Cav, live after hours. Oh, I tell you what, you will have a lot of fun with that show. We simulcast on both X and Rumble. That's where producer Doug and I have to unwind after a hard day of all this content creating. Oh, but look, even our Spotify link to our audio only version podcast of our shows, as well as all the links you'll need to support the show, and as well as visit us on other social media sites. So again, please consider visiting my Linktree link at the top of my X profile, or it's scrolling right here, and subscribe for free. Linktree/ReCavanaugh. All right, Andrew, I'm all topped up, buddy. I am ready. I am ready. Oh,
likewise, George. Likewise.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, man, look, I haven't gotten to know you on X. Just excited about your work. Big fan of your Harry's World series, and I think you might for the works we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So hopefully we can get a little scoop on Cocktails with Cav too, you know. But yeah, man, I tell you what, a great website, and of course Harry's World, your series, man. If you could take us through that and
yeah, okay.
What's going on, so people will know, because like I said, just a fascinating, gritty noir series. Great writing, man. Great writing.
Thank you, George. Appreciate that. So Harry Kenmare, private investigator based in Sydney. So Harry's backstory is that he's a former detective sergeant, like myself, except he got kicked out of the police force, and that was for bashing a pedophile. And his backstory there is that he lost his daughter to pedophiles. She was taken and murdered. So that's his backstory. So when we first meet Harry at the beginning of Harry's World, which is the first novel, Harry's working as a PI, bit of a broken down drunk and womanizer, and likes all those things in life. So that introduced him to the world, and the stories sort of roll on from there. And it's the first novel's sort of obviously seeing his world, the people that he starts to build into his group. And then towards the end of the novel, he's getting, and I don't want to give any spoilers, of course, but he's getting information then that is potentially going to lead to some vengeance. Always a good theme in crime stories,
right?
And and so hence, as the name of the second novel then suggests, which picks up where the first one left off, Harry's Quest. That's exactly what he's on, a quest of vengeance, and that proceeds with some fairly good, gory, graphic escapades in that one. And then the third novel, which I'm literally just finishing the manuscript now, and I've got the editing to do, but that's Harry's Grail. That's the third one in the set. And again, the title, I think, speaks for itself. So that's and the books are all written as sort of 5 episodes. So basically, each episode concerns some case that he and then his team are working on as private sleuths. But then we have the overarching story, which is about him and chasing down these pedophiles. But so there's plenty of stories of corruption in there, as you would expect. Corrupt police, corrupt government officials. Of course, we don't want to leave out some of the organised religion and the corruption there as well. So it's really got, and there's plenty of sort of exposure to the whole sex industry and stuff. And a lot of that is stuff I was, my last 18 months as a detective before I resigned from the police, were in Vice Squad. So, you spent your whole time working with girls in the industry. And sort of, from police point of view, it was a bit of a waste of time, but it was a fascinating look at a certain part of society. Well, I should say actually certain parts of society, because the sex industry, of course, is not one homogenous thing. It's got all sorts of different aspects to it. But in terms of seeing bits of human nature, it was fascinating. So, right. And that imbues a fair bit of the work as well. So, There's certainly some seedy stuff that goes on. So that's the novels. I did also then start experimenting with short stories. So originally I started reading a magazine when it first came out in America called Switchblade. Came out from Los Angeles. Scott Rutherford was the editor, a man I greatly respect, also as an author. And I read that and loved it. And that was especially for hardcore type crime that most people wouldn't probably publish. And I sort of thought, well, okay, I'll give it a go at a short story. Anyway, long story short, Scotch did like my first story that I sent in, got published, a couple more then got published, and that's when I thought, well, I'll actually do a set of short stories. So the Harry Kenmare PI at your service is a set of 7 standalone short stories. Obviously Harry's there. Some of the other characters from the novels also feature along the way from time to time, but they're all standalone stories. And I have to say, I mean, I've loved getting into the short story writing. It's a completely different writing form from the novel. So obviously in novel you can wax lyrical and you got plenty of length to keep going in. I mean, you don't want to make it boring or anything, or too slow, but you've got plenty of room to play. Whereas a short story, of course, you're generally working to a word constraint, especially if it's going to be published in a magazine or an anthology. So it gives you a lot of discipline around editing. And when you are editing, okay, well, you're looking at every single word. Okay, is that word actually needed there, and does that add something to my writing and my story? So
yeah, that is true. But I love how you carried Harry over into the short story little anthology you got going, and but it's great, man. I tell you, and I can't wait. When do you think the third? As we're all anxiously waiting there, Andrew. when do you anticipate possibly Harry's Grail coming out?
You're too kind, George. So I would hope Harry's Grail will probably be out around August, maybe September. I said the manuscript is done. I've got to do all the editing now and other arrangements for it. So I self-publish pretty well all my stuff. So that's coming. Some other projects are in the wing as well. So I've got, I am working on some more Harry short stories, but there won't be another volume of those until maybe next year, maybe later on next year. So I've got the other, and not Harry work, but the Cops Writing Crime project that I run on my website, where I've gone around looking around the world for all ex-cops, some still serving. There you go. Yep. But who write crime fiction. So it's only for crime fiction. Obviously, there's a lot of good stuff, true crime stuff, and also obviously biography and memoir written by ex-law enforcement. But this, I was interested in this angle, looking for the realism in crime fiction. And I think, and when I've read other ex-law enforcement who write crime fiction, there is that level of realism in there and those sort of brush strokes of police life that I don't think other authors managed to capture anywhere near as well. So that was my interest in getting that group together, and there's over 400 of them on that page on the website now around the world. And then I wanted to think about putting together a collection, so I reached out to as many as I could on social media. And anyway, so the end result was the Cops Writing Crime to Serve, Protect and Write. That's the first volume, so there's 15 stories in there. I've got one of mine in there. So it's not a Harry story. I've got another. It will become a bit more of a series because I've got 4 stories down now. So it's actually a detective sergeant, however, this one. So he's an old school detective sergeant who's still serving, and he rails against all the modern trends in policing. So,
which it has changed. I've just kind of noticed over the last 3 decades, it has changed somewhat. It's changed a lot.
It has. I mean, I've been out for a long time, but I've still got a lot of contacts who are still in or have only just recently left. So I mean, I get to hear it a lot. And anyway, so that's that character, and then so I managed to get 9 of your compatriots in there, 9 American ex-law enforcement. There are 4 Brits in there, 1 Canadian, and myself as the Aussie in there. So it was a fascinating project to put together because it's. I mean, they're all great stories. I love them all, but there's all these different styles, but all with some aspects of realism that you can really pick up on as if you're law enforcement or ex-law enforcement, you feel it straight away. So
yeah, I did. I know that's one of the reasons I first reached out to you, I saw this particular project of yours that you had going, and it's just a fascinating project and a way to get, those guys out there as well. Not only indie authors, because God knows we all struggle as indie creators, but
yeah, well, I look, that was one of the other the fun bits of it, that I got to online obviously meet all those guys and ladies, and I got to know them, and I'm in the process of putting together the volume 2 now, so that project's still in its early stages and still very much open, so some of them are coming back for another go, which is great. But yeah, you get to meet all sorts of, and this is one of the things, upsides of social media, of course. Without social media, well, you and I would never have met. I wouldn't have met any of the writing, as I call it, my writing community over in the US. Yeah, I mean, social media certainly got upsides like that. But that was a really great project. Looking forward to volume 2 of it. I've got another anthology project I'm working on. Won't say too much about it just yet, but it's that's coming out later this year as well. And that's it's a themed collection of stories, and I'm working on that with one of your former guests who I know well now, Vern Smith.
Vern, yes.
Yeah. So Vern and I are now sort of good friends online, but we haven't met in person yet. Well, I'm coming over to the US in October, so I'm hoping to meet Vern in person then.
Wonderful.
So working on that anthology, and I've also got another project that this will be the first one that I haven't self-published. So I was approached by the guys from the Independent Fiction Alliance in Los Angeles, which I've been a member of for since it started, and they were looking at doing a novelisation project, and it turned out to be actually an Australian film director, indie film director, produced a crime story about a drunken private investigator. So, the guys in Los Angeles came to me and said, "You're the man to do the novelisation." So that's coming out. Uncle B Publications are publishing it. So that's called Jasper, which is the name of the film. So I did, and so doing a novelisation was a completely different form of writing again, because obviously I had the film there, I had the copy of the screenplay, but then writing a book. But came together well, and the film director, of course, his story it was originally, he loved it. So that Jasper will be coming out at some stage this year as well. So, but that's getting published out of Los Angeles by Uncle B. So,
fascinating. Golly, yeah. Well, I tell you, you have some pans in the fire there.
Yeah, but if only I could do it full time,
That's it. Well, Andrew, man, I cannot thank you enough for coming on, sharing with us not only your fascinating background, but just your great work and a lot of the great projects you have going on. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't gotten a chance to know Andrew, please give him a follow on X. His screen name's right there under his video for you, at AB Patterson Off. Go ahead and give him a follow, and by all means, please, all his great work is on his website, abpatterson.com.au, and of course all those links will be in the description of the show for you. But please go check out his website and all his great works we talked about tonight. The Harry's World series, be looking for that Harry's Grail. We're all looking for Harry's Grail. But please check out Andrew's links in the description by all means, and they're available wherever you get your fine reading materials, all the good retailers and ebook outlets. So please check them out. Andrew, my friend, again, I know I've said it before, but just so glad to have you on, bud.
George, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege, mate. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Cheers, my friend.
Here's to your health.